Brand new pipe major, brand new band. What do you think are like, could we distill, like, here are three of the most important things a new pipe major might have in mind as they're getting a band off the ground or something like that?
Man, I mean, so first of all, I'm probably the wrong person to ask this question. We're Reddit crawling again.
Here we go. Let's crawl Reddit.
I feel like it's like, this sort of conversation, it doesn't excite me as much as some of the nerdy stuff does, but I feel like the feeling is inverse for the audience. It's good to do these. It's good to answer some questions from the people every now and then.
Yeah, I love it when people write into the show with questions and topics. So everybody, please feel free to do that. But this is kind of reaching out into the internet for exactly the same thing. And so it's like, well, if you want proof that at least one person out there is thinking about this topic, here it is, because it's on the internet,
Yeah. Sometimes when people post on Reddit, it means they don't want the advice.
Fair enough.
They don't want my advice, but they're going to get it anyway, Jim.
They're going to get it anyway. That's right.
Well, if they're listening, which they're probably not. So
yeah.
Let's just see what's going on. What are the people in the world thinking about today, Jim?
Well, here's one that, I'll read it to you. This Redditor posts the following. They say, country club sunset gigs. Anyone had much success getting golf and country clubs on board with sunset type gigs, giving a 10 to 20 minute performance on the greens at the end of the day as diners and club goers wrap up their day? How did you go about pushing that? Did it become a regular thing or just something that they wanted on a specific holiday weekend? I read that and I thought to myself, I'm aware of Andy Fusco in Las Vegas because he's posted some images and stuff from golf club gigs. Dude, I think I'm a reasonably, like, as far as like pipers who don't do it professionally, I do a lot. I think kind of a lot of gigs. I've never done a golf or country club, golf course or country club.
I've definitely done a few golf tournaments over the years. Done a few of those, but
for a minute there, I was
specifically for the club, right?
Yeah, and for a minute I was like, well, why is this a thing? And I thought, oh yeah, golf's a Scottish thing, isn't it? Yeah. It was not Bull Roarer Tuke who invented it, as I often like to think, by lopping off the head of an orc, which went sailing through the air and then down a rabbit hole. So he simultaneously saved the Shire and invented the game of golf.
I sort of see what you did there. That was some sort of Lord of the Rings joke.
It was, yes.
Yeah.
So it was not that. It comes from Scotland. So I guess that kind of makes sense. So I guess I wanted to pull it in because I was like, is this a thing? Andrew, do you know of this? Is it a thing? Do pipers play at golf clubs a lot?
I don't know if it's a lot, but man, if you can land a gig like that, props to you. So like, I think the basic concept is the piper kind of plays on the course as the sun goes down, and then the people in the clubhouse who are dining and having a drink together or what have you kind of have that amazing bagpiper ambiance on the golf course. And then how would you get a gig like that? I think you're going to have to get creative. What would we do here? Here's what I would do. I would find a buddy that has one of those nice drones.
A flying drone, to be clear. Not one of those nice base drones.
Yeah, a flying drone.
Too,
yeah, and get some people who really know what they're doing, how to film stuff. And then you find a golf course who's willing to let you do it for free a few times, right? And then film yourself doing it. And then who knows if the golf course that let you do it for free is going to hire you to come do it regularly. But maybe now you would have some footage of you doing it that you could put on a nice website. And then you could start approaching all the golf courses in your area, asking them like, hey, I do this thing. Would you have any interest in hiring me every Saturday night at sundown? Maybe something like that. But I feel like if a golf course could see and more or less hear what it's like, that might give you an edge where a golf course might actually like speak with you. And if they say no, it would be interesting to know what their objections were so that you could either fix it for them or fix it for the next people that you pitch.
That seems like a very good idea.
Something like that maybe?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like you want to see it. If I'm a golf course owner, I'm putting myself in the shoes of a golf course owner. It's like, well, first of all, bagpipes, not everyone likes the sound of the bagpipes. So if I hire you to play every Saturday night, that might just annoy my guests.
It might drive people away.
Yeah, exactly. So if you could sort of show them the proof of concept, I think that would go a long way. And then, I think you should do it up good. Find a buddy with a drone and get some aerial shots of the piper playing. Get a photographer or somebody that kind of at least knows what they're doing to make shots look nice, I would make sure your video has some video of what it's like from the patron's perspective.
Or yeah.
Because bagpipes are so loud, right?
Yeah.
And we know the answer is if you're playing 300 feet away, they're not too loud. It's going to be really nice ambiance. I'm having trouble saying ambiance today for some reason. But anyway, like,
I got you.
But you might be playing over by the 18th green and the restaurant is 100 yards away, a football field away, in which case the pipes won't be too loud. It'll be really nice. But it would be cool to have something to show the food and beverage people at the golf course so that they know, what they're getting into. And then you might be off to the races and who knows, maybe some people will say yes. I also think that if they say yes, they're not going to want to pay you much.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess the hope for a gig like this is probably get it going regular and probably not high dollar every time. That's probably what we'll be shooting for there.
And that might be a good gig. Or maybe I wouldn't be surprised if you love golf. It might be a barter situation.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
maybe you can play at the golf course every week or every other week or something like that as ambiance in exchange for a round or two of golf or something.
Yeah,
that might be a more realistic pitch. Yeah.
Then you're going along with your golf clubs in the little wheelie cart and your bagpipes in your other hand, and just every time you finish the 18th hole, you have to pull your pipes out or something like that. Huh?
Yeah. So anyway, good luck.
Yeah.
Sounds like a fun gig. All right. What else is the world of Reddit feeling?
Well, now here's one that you definitely have covered this topic before, Andrew, but I thought maybe it's worth reiterating at least briefly. So this person says, how much of your practice is focused on competition tunes? They go on to say, I compete in a grade 4 band and as a grade 4 soloist. I try to practice about 45 minutes most days.
Yikes.
But I'm struggling to figure out how much of my practice time I should devote to my competition tunes and how much I should devote to other, air quotes, fun tunes. I want to improve, and so I feel guilty every time I play things not in one of my competition sets. However, I didn't learn bagpipes to play the same 10 tunes over and over again, and I'm getting a little burnt out. For those that compete, how do you balance preparing for competitions with other, more recreational tunes? I thought this person, actually,
that's a great question.
I thought they even articulated the observation really well that, this is not what I came here for.
I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
It's a great question, and I think it's something that a lot of people feel. A few things come to mind, and they are unpolished thoughts. But one is, if you're feeling these feelings, you might have too much repertoire on the go, and you might want to cut back.
Maybe trim down a bit.
Yeah, actually maybe trim down the quote-unquote serious music that you need to have prepared. Let me give you a couple of examples. By the way, sometimes you hear people say stuff like, well, you can't play band tunes in the solos. False. Yeah, you absolutely can. You absolutely can. And if I were to play solos tomorrow, I would absolutely be playing stuff from the band. I really like the stuff from the band. Now, I changed the way I play it. I'm not bashing away at pipe band tempos in the solos. I'll lay back the tempo and I'll swing those tunes extra, and I'll give them a little bit of my own personal touch. But that makes it so that whenever I practice those crossover tunes where I could use in both areas, I'm getting extra bang for the buck.
Right, two proverbial birds with one metaphorical stone, as it were.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's something you would consider. And even in the lower grades, you could consider that, I think. I don't know. Maybe you could, if your band plays a 4-parted 2/4 march of any kind.
What about this, Andrew?
Cross it over.
What if you're playing in the lower grades, your band decides to use a common march in one of their competition sets, you want to compete in solos, you don't have anything else prepared, so you also use that in your solo. Is that pushing it too far? You're going to play it at the mass bands, you're going to play it in the band competition, and you want to do it in solos?
Yeah, it depends. So unless you're in very entry-level solos, you're going to need a 2/4 march of approximately 4 parts, usually. So in the EUSPBA, for example, by the time you're in grade 4, which is what I would still consider to be the entry level. We do have a grade 5. That's sort of to get your feet wet and to try solos. But at any time, you would start at the official entry level, which is the grade 4. And then you're going to need a 4-parted 2/4 march. So there's a couple of mass bands tunes that might fit that bill. Like if you play the 79th Farewell to Gibraltar, which we don't play in the mass bands that often, but I feel like we used to, when I was in British Columbia, I feel like we used to play that. That would be a great solo tune to start with, though. to your point. So I suppose going back to my original knee-jerk reaction, which is if you're feeling these feelings, you might have too much on the go.
Mm.
And what would be ideal is if you could have as much fun as you wanted to and still hit those solo tunes.
I mean, I'm not trying to judge anybody's practices here, like do what works for you. But it does seem to me like as a third party observer here, like 45 minutes most days, that seems like kind of on the, it's a lot end of
It's a lot.
amount of time playing. And so then only preserving 10 minutes of that for having fun, like you could probably change that ratio and still make good progress on the competition tunes.
Yeah, exactly. You should be able to do what you need to do in 15 minutes a day, even if you're a soloist. Like you should be able to do the work portion of your practice session
Gotcha.
in about 15 minutes a day. And if for some reason you're having fun, you could extend that. But if, like to this person's point, it starts to feel a little bit like work sometimes, especially this time of the season, because it's competition time. So it can tend to feel a little bit like that. You want to keep it short and sweet and to the point. And then what are some other ways you could make things a little bit more interesting? One of the things you could do is I always have my digital chanter at the ready. It's a lot easier and potentially more fun in many ways to play the electronic chanter. I play it along with recordings of the band. That's what I do, which is nice and fun. It helps me keep up with things, but also I have fun with it. It doesn't feel like work, even though I am absolutely practicing my competition band material when I'm doing that. It doesn't feel like work. It kind of feels like I'm jamming, which is fun. And then that leads me to my final thought, which is if you're not having the F word, don't do it. Or do it, but understand that something should be fixed.
Yeah, do it, but do it different.
Yeah, well, like you do it today, but then by tomorrow, you need to have a better plan.
Yeah.
Like this person mentions feeling guilty when they don't practice their solo tunes and when they try to have fun, right? Like that's a thought that we want to avoid, I think.
Yeah, maybe find some way to toss that attitude out the window.
Yeah, like what's making it feel not fun? Like they're feeling burned out and all these kind of things. We need to have lots of fun. I wonder if this person is obsessing about being perfect at their solo competition. I wonder, because this is often a side effect, is we want to be perfect at our solo competition, and then the desire to be perfect makes us over practice, even though we're not having fun. And then that leads to the feelings of being burnt out, right?
Yeah, that
so
makes sense.
Another place my brain goes is maybe you should take your competitions a little less seriously and focus on just keeping them fun. And understand that even the world's best players at the Glenfiddich, if you ask them how it went when they played at the Glenfiddich, they would probably say something along the lines of, yeah, it went fairly well, implying that there was tons of imperfection with their performances that they wish would have been better. And that's the highest imaginable level of play in the history of all bagpiping ever. And those folks, they embrace the fact that it's never perfect. So I think a misunderstanding of competition in general might also be a problem there. Like competition is, folks, there's only one reason to play bagpipes, and it's not perfection. It's to have fun and enjoy it.
Yeah. There are two things that I feel like I see in solo competition as a less seasoned and less frequent solo competitor myself that I see more seasoned and better or more frequent competitors doing. One of them is, it seems like they often have just so many tunes that they've played over the years that when it comes to doing a solo, it's kind of like they're picking from stuff that they've done before that they already have rattling around in their head. And
that might be true, but also
it's often fun.
Serious soloists, they're not doing that. They're definitely prepared, and they're going in and they're not switching tunes willy-nilly. So just
I
be
believe,
careful there.
Absolutely,
That's a slippery slope there, Jim.
But another one that I feel like seems to be the case is that for me, the less frequent competitor, it feels like the solo is this singular event that like I'm doing all my preparation for this one event, and it's like this really distinct point in time. Whereas the seasoned competitors, it seems like it's more like this is what I do every day. And it's just going to so happen that on day 247, someone's going to observe me while they're holding a clipboard. On 248, I'm going to do this again. Like, this is just what I'm doing. And so it's more like capturing a little picture in time rather than here, I've polished this. I want you to look at it just one time.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It reminds me of when I watch golf. It's like, oh, like these guys who are at the top of the leaderboard on day 4 of the Masters. It's like, to me, it seems like, oh my God, this is going to be some incredible moment. And it very well might be for them. But also, they're just doing what they do every day. And it's just happening, they're peaking at the right time, so to speak.
Yeah, you're trying to time it so you peak at the right time. That's right, yeah.
Yeah. It's also a problem that bands have when they play at the World Pipe Band Championships. It's a easy trap to fall into. It's like, oh, here's the Worlds. It's the day of the Worlds. Man, I think we might have a chance to win it. So what I want to do today is I want to play the best I've ever played. I'm going to play out of my skin. I'm going to knock this thing out of the park, where that would be a big mistake, right? And now that I'm old man Douglas, you learn that no, what we want to do today is just make sure that we present our absolutely average performance. And usually by doing that with a little extra adrenaline, usually helps you perform a little better than average, but you wouldn't be trying to knock it out of the park. Because sometimes you can just whiff and fall on your butt when you do stuff like that. And it ends up in a big freak out. So yeah, the other thing I would add to your list, I see seasoned competitors, and I'm not even talking about professional level. I'm just talking about people who do it all the time and they're in the rhythm of solo competing on a regular basis. The thing I see is they're relaxed. They're having fun. They're chatting with their friends that, and even though they're competitors, they still chat with each other because they know on any given day, things could go great or they could go terrible. And so, you're not going to be eyeballing your competitors and hating their guts. Like, they're nice people. They're fun to hang out with. I think I actually told the story once when I was younger. I might have told this story on the podcast where I was younger, just getting started in professional level. And then my blow stick popped out of the bag. And Duncan Bell tied it in for me 10 minutes before I was on. Yeah. And he was super relaxed. I was freaking out a little bit, but what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is you go up there and you make a mistake, and these sorts of things happen all the time. A lot of times a judge forgives a mistake anyway, because the rest of it's so good. Or you think you played perfect, but the judge didn't like it, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
All of these are possibilities, right? So maybe taking some pressure off. You certainly should never feel guilty if you chose to play something fun during your playing session instead of quote unquote practicing. Now, there's obvious exceptions to those rules, right? Like at the very highest levels, there's probably more of a hard work element because you kind of need it. Because if you're going to travel, like for me, I'm going to travel all the way to Scotland, and I'm on a team of really high performing individuals. And so like I have to put some pressure on myself to make sure I'm as strong a team player as I can be.
Yeah, you got a lot of people depending on you.
Yeah,
they're all investing a lot.
So there's probably exceptions out there that prove the rule, but the vast, vast majority of the time, if you're not like super having fun, it's a good indication you're not approaching it the optimal way, and tweak the way you're approaching it. I don't know. I feel like we've talked about this for a while. Have we missed anything?
I mean, probably, but it also seems like some solid advice from old man Douglas.
What was the actual question? What was the actual question from that?
It was, how much of your practice time is focused on competition tunes?
Yeah.
And they clarify that of their 45 minutes, 35 is on competition tunes, 10 is on fun, but they feel guilty during those 10.
Yeah. So here's my recommendation. Okay. No more than 15 minutes of work before you officially shift gears to just doing whatever you feel like. For me, that's a good structure for a practice session. So, 10 to 15 minutes of work, and then just you pick the thing that you have to work on, and maybe you're not absolutely thrilled about it, and maybe it's not absolute most fun imaginable, but pick that thing, get that out of the way early, just like you would do your chores before you I don't know, what do people do for fun?
Like you do your chores or whatever.
Yeah, you would do your chores before you play video games. You're still going to end up playing video games most of the time, but you kind of want to get the chores out of the way first. So if there is stuff you have to do, even though it feels a little bit like a chore, do it briefly, a little bit every day at the beginning of your practice session. And then we should segue to having fun in not too long.
Yeah, I think it was Mark Twain who said something like, I'd rather not have to eat a frog, but if I do have to, I do it first thing in the morning, something along those lines.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. Yeah. Here's another thing that comes to mind, Jim,
Mm.
is you can't improve a lot in a day.
Mm.
That's the
So
other thing.
maybe don't keep grinding at it as if you're going to improve a lot that day.
Yeah, let's chip away each day, like 5 minutes of really nice hard work on your solo tune or tunes, 5 to 10 minutes, and then do that every day. I wonder how often this person plays. It sounds like this person's pretty good about practicing every day.
Sounds like they're very consistent. Yeah.
Yeah, but it might be a lack of patience issue,
Mm.
right? It's like I practice 45 minutes every day and I solo tunes and I have to be disciplined and all that stuff. But really, maybe the problem is just that it's going to take a little bit longer to get to the level that you want to get to. So let's just relax and keep doing the things, but maybe a little patience is needed.
Mm. That sounds like, so you're saying kind of settle in and enjoy the journey, as it were.
Yeah. It's like if I want to go on a diet, it's foolhardy to try and lose 5 pounds a week.
Sure. But
Like,
if you thought
would
that you could do
obviously
it,
suck.
if you thought you could, you might like not eat for a week and exercise excessively for that week, and that's probably not sustainable. So maybe it's kind of maybe part of the caution here is this sustainable? If it's mostly work and not so much fun, then how many years will it last?
Exactly.
And we want it to last for decades, forever.
I think that's right. Yeah. Like, meanwhile, if I could lose a half a pound a week, or let's call it a pound a month, right? In 2 years, I would be 25 pounds less, which would be right on the money. And you could lose a pound a month, changing very little and not hating your life and everything you eat, right? And the same is true for piping. Maybe it's like, maybe we don't need 45 minutes of practice, 10 minutes a day of practice, followed by whatever you feel like, which might include nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what I do. I'm basically, man, sometimes I feel like it's 5 and that's okay. But like, I'm just playing the pipes every day and I'm practicing for maybe 10 minutes, like one bit of the material to get warmed up and then one bit a little bit more serious. This time of year, it's more than 10 minutes, but I'm just talking about on average.
Yeah, sure.
It's
There's
like,
crunch time. There's crunch time.
Like right now, it's getting close to crunch time, so it's more than that. But yeah, like 10 minutes. Oh, it's plenty. And then some days I feel great and I can't wait to play more, and I end up going for 45 minutes, having tons of the F word.
Yeah,
Otherwise
that's the
known as
other
fun.
end, right? Sometimes it might include nothing, but sometimes what you feel like will be fun that day is exactly what you would have been working on other days.
Well, and vice versa. And some days it's just not happening. And so rather than be disciplined or whatever, I just stop. We'll do something else. I'll do something else that interests me and feels like the fun thing to do. And then, so anyway, there's a lot of thoughts for that person. Yeah. Good luck.
Yes, absolutely. Good luck. Another one that you have touched on this before, but I feel like this expressed the concern so well. I thought maybe I'd pull it in front of you for a little conversation. So this person writes, pipe majors, how often do you change out your medleys /MSR? Here's the context. They say,
yep, here we go again.
Yeah. They say, for reference, I'm a pipe major in a grade 5 pipe band. When I took over as pipe major, the band was sticking to traditional marches, nothing complicated. And then I think this observation is really cool. They say, over the past year or so, I've been slowly introducing traditional competition arrangements more as longer showpieces rather than for competitions. We're just not there yet. We're going over the medley now, and I'm noticing a gradual increase in motivation by my members. They're slower than some in learning tunes, and I'm going at a pace which is healthy for learning. But it got me thinking. For pipe majors of lower grade bands, how often do you swap out your medleys, your MSR, your repertoire? Would having the same medley for 2 years be stale and stagnant? Or would a yearly change be a good motivating force to bring my pipers and drummers' skill up? Thoughts? And we probably don't have time to read all dozen or so comments that it has so far, but many of them are some variation of definitely change it up because that is interesting and fun. And that's probably why you're noticing an increase in motivation or involvement and et cetera, because having new stuff to play can be fun.
Well, it's a perfect example of a problem, right, Jim?
Yeah.
So the problem is when, like, for me, the definition of a problem is when you have two strong ideas and they're conflicting with each other.
Yeah.
And we have to come up with a potential solution that explains how to solve the problem. That's our job. That's our job in life, Jim.
Yeah, it's like a negotiating operation.
Humans do this extremely well. And then if we were to solve this problem, it would give birth to a lot of problem children, right, Jim?
The problem children. What is
But
this,
what
Karl
are the
Popper
two-
hour?
What are the two conflicting ideas here? Okay, now that was a question where I don't really care about your answer. I'm just going to give you mine. So, yeah, Jim, hold that thought.
Yeah.
What are the two conflicting problems here, or two conflicting ideas? Idea number one is if we play new, interesting material that pushes people, that's not the same old, maybe explore some different time signatures, maybe build up a medley that we might someday use for competition. But we do that, and it tends to excite people. It tends to motivate them. They tend to have more fun. And also, bizarrely, they tend to get better at a much higher pace than they ever have before. That's idea number one, right? But then idea number two is if we push people too hard and if we ask them to do too much, they're going to be unhappy and they're not going to want to do this anymore and they're not going to have fun. That's the other idea.
Yeah.
Right? The other idea is by changing the music, people are going to be upset and mutiny and maybe quit the band.
Yeah, maybe related to the last one that we read, they'll feel like it's more work and less fun, and that ratio will drive them to the point where they say it's not worth it anymore.
Exactly. So there's two ideas there. Okay. And those are very real things. I think this is a universal thing. Maybe not universal, but pretty close to it. That all these bands feel. It's kind of like how much, well, new material is definitely good and it reinvigorates people and it keeps people excited and people want to feel like they're moving forward, right? But then also too much work and it becomes something where people can't squeeze it emotionally or even physically into their lives, right? So how do we navigate that problem? I think we want to maximize the new material that we do each year in a band, okay? But real life usually means we can't just completely start with a brand new repertoire every year.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So what I recommend doing is a little bit of both, a nice healthy mixture of both. For example, what if you changed half of the medley on average each year?
So you're thinking like maybe one year you switch one or two tunes and the next year you switch the other one or two tunes.
Yes, something like that. On average, like maybe it's not every single year, it's exactly half. That's not what I'm saying. But like, what if on average every 2 years, your medley was different than 2 years ago because you cycled stuff in and out?
Yeah.
Like that's an idea. Grade 1 bands tend to produce one new medley a year, and then they play last year's because grade 1 bands have to have two. So one medley will be brand new, and then the other medley will be last year's. And sometimes they go longer, sometimes rarely, but sometimes they go shorter. And meanwhile, the MSR material, I don't know, I feel like bands cycle stuff out more slowly through that at the highest levels, but at the lower levels, you would still want that 50-50 effect where each year there's new guys coming in and some tunes being retired or repurposed. It's not to say that you forget it forever. Maybe you move it to a March set or something like that. But yeah, I recommend a healthy cycle and I recommend building that into the culture of your band so people know to expect it.
Maybe that is actually part of the friction that people experience when switching tunes is expectations weren't set early enough. And so it feels like a rug pull or something along those lines.
Yep. And the other thing is it tends to get dumped on you all at once and it feels overwhelming. So the other thing is this could be a year-round process. So, during peak season, we just had a person suggesting maybe they're feeling burned out during peak season, but like the peak season would be a great time to start to introduce some fun little tunes people could horse around with to break up the monotony of just the hard practice. And you could just horse around with it, just get warmed up with it for a couple minutes at the beginning of practice during peak season before you get to the meat and potatoes. And you might find a couple of tunes that you love, and you might find a couple where you just laugh and you're like, that's not going to happen. But you could start to do this preliminary stuff ahead of time. And that way, when this peak season's over, you kind of know what you want to do and so on.
Yeah.
In grade 1 bands, we don't really play other material, but in Inverary right now, there's already some ideas about next year's medley. that are floating around and, people are kind of chatting about already because, it helps to get a little bit of a jump, even though we might not end up doing any of these ideas, but it's sort of built in that we're always chatting about what we might do next, which is really fun.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but it seems to me like it's probably it's not everybody, of course, but it's probably a somewhat more common occurrence that a person playing in a grade 4 or even grade 3 band, it's quite possible that a member of one of those bands, everything that they play is what the band is playing that year. And I suspect that it's very much the opposite when you get to grade 1, that you can pretty well assume that everybody in the band is playing a lot of other stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's like, well, at the upper levels in competition bands, there's not as much of a need to introduce new material because new material is organically cycling through all the players all the time.
Yeah, good thought. So anyway, I recommend a gentle ongoing cycle of stuff. You might have a tune that you worked really hard on and you feel is going really well. It doesn't matter. Cycle that puppy out after a while. Put it off in the concert sets. But cycle something new in. It's like, I feel like that's our tune. We play that so well. Okay, cool. But also try some other stuff.
Yeah, you don't have to throw it all the way out. Just move it somewhere else.
How about one more, Jim? Because I know you're on a time crunch today.
I am on a bit of a time crunch. Sorry about that. But this one feels like it's maybe a little bit related. So this person writes in and they say, any advice for a new pipe major? Here's what they say. They say, I've started a new band. So it's not just a new pipe major. It's a whole new band. So, I've started a new band with 2 other musicians. We're now 5 pipers, 1 drummer, and 1 student. We've had 2 rehearsals so far, and I must say I'm very impressed with the way everyone is motivated and investing time. I'm trying to keep things mostly fun and low-key while we're still in the startup phase. Although fun is something that I want to keep no matter what. Any advice for me as a fresh-out-of-the-box pipe major? Any and all advice is welcome. One can only learn from that. I felt like this, along with the last 2 that we looked at, they all feel kind of related to me. Like I suspect that some of the things that this new pipe major with this new group is going to be having to figure out is what tunes do we introduce and how often do we introduce new tunes and stuff like that. But more broadly speaking too, brand new pipe major, brand new band. What do you think are could we distill here are 3 of the most important things a new pipe major might have in mind as they're getting a band off the ground or something like that?
Man, so first of all, I'm probably the wrong person to ask this question. Here are the things that I can't resist doing that tend to make me do a subpar job.
Okay, so that's sometimes you can learn by negative example. Here's some things to not do as a new pipe major.
So try not to be a micromanaging prick who how would I put this? It's like you micromanage because you think no one else can handle what you're asking them to do. And that's bad. Yeah. That's bad. So don't do that. I did okay delegating, but not great back in my day. Like other people can do other things. And it's worth sacrificing some quality in what in your mind would seem like some quality. For example, let's say I don't want to let anyone else tune the drones because I feel like I'm the only one that could do a great job that's up to my standards of tuning the drones because I'm a micromanaging prick. It's worth the drones not being as good to allow other people some ownership in the process of operating the band.
I see what you mean.
You know what I mean? It's worth it. Yeah, so the drones aren't going to be as good, let's say. I mean, you might also be just totally wrong about your own abilities. But let's say the drones aren't going to be as good or the chanters aren't going to be tuned as well. But the fact that other people are able to play a role in the operation of the band, that's going to give them ownership. It's going to make them excited. It's going to make them feel like part of the team. So I feel like, you should probably do that.
What do you think of this, Andrew? When we were starting Garden Valley, I was trying to do pipe major stuff and librarian stuff. Like I was putting together the tunes, the settings quite often and putting them into Google Drive and stuff like that. And I had figured out the settings in Celtic pipes that were going to make everything look uniform. And I had this vision that all of our band music was going to be so uniform, same type settings, same distances between staves, and a little logo at the top right of the page as well, Well, I wrote a style sheet. I was like, here we go. Now anybody can do it because here's the style sheet, Well, yeah, it didn't work out because another very capable, kind person in the band volunteered to take that duty, and I needed somebody to take it because I was trying to do too much, and so I was failing at a lot of stuff. And they never followed the style sheet. And at first, I was frustrated. And then I thought to myself, actually, you know what? It got done, and I didn't have to spend any time on it, this is great. It's great. I can let go of that. So that's like a
Yeah.
quality thing. At first, it felt like it was an important quality thing, and it was hard to let go. But when I
Yeah.
did let go, it was really good for me and maybe for other people too.
I know. I can see how it should be done, but I don't pull it off very well.
Mm.
The other thing is that people are going to go where in the direction they want to go. And so like you can only steer so much as well, right?
Mm.
Like you could only steer the group. It's like, I feel like it's similar to having kids, right, Jim?
Mm.
It's like you have a vision for what the kids should be doing, but nah, that's not how it
Yeah,
works, is it?
right. Yeah.
You can steer maybe 5 degrees one way or the other. You can help steer your child, but like the other 355 degrees, is going to be chosen by the people involved in the band, right? And so the band's the same way
Yeah. It makes me think
as
of that.
kids. Yeah.
There's this metaphor that Jonathan Haidt uses about the driver and the elephant. Like if you're the driver and, in this case, maybe the group as a whole is the elephant, you're not actually going to get that elephant to do exactly what you want. You can
No.
coax it. You can like maybe influence it a little bit by tickling an
Yeah.
ear or offering it a treat, but like don't expect to do more than that.
Yeah. I think that's right. And I think that's good, but I think it takes a lot of patience, which I'm really not patient.
So maybe
And
that's
I
thing
think,
number 2, be patient.
yeah, like you got to be focused on the process and not on the result, not on the accolades,
Yeah.
and just kind of let things happen. And here's another thought. I think the term pipe major is misleading. And to have any successful band, you're going to need to have several people that are willing to work extremely hard behind the scenes on things that aren't related to playing bagpipes and drums.
Yeah. There's so much that goes on outside of playing music to make a band run. That's for sure.
So much. And what's going to happen as a new pipe major is you're going to end up trying to do it all to keep it going. But if other people aren't willing to pitch in, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
When I was pipe major of Oran Moore, which was a grade 1 band, we had tons of people behind the scenes. Myself, I did a lot of work. Eric McNeil did a ton of work behind the scenes. A ton. Like an incredible lift. But then there was like a lot of other people. Some people weren't even playing members of the band, but like people were doing incredible logistical lifts. Like, let's say 20% of the people in the band were doing incredible lifts. And then the other 80% were not, right? They were able to just come to the band and play. But in a 40-person band, I'm just trying to think, what would 20% of that be? Like, yeah, 8 to 10 people in the band were doing a ton of stuff. A ton.
Yeah.
Like a crazy, unreasonable amount. Like, how are we going to get to Scotland? Where are we going to stay? Who's going to do the deposit? How are we going to eat? How are we going to eat at the Highland Games? Like, what are people supposed to do? Who's going to register us for the competitions? How are we going to raise money? That's a big thing for every band. And man, if you try and take all of that on yourself, it's going to be really tough. But people will let you.
They'll let you do it. Yeah.
They'll let you do all the work. Right.
Yeah.
But instead, you really do need a team. You need a team.
Yeah.
To be successful in the long run, because there might be years where you're focused on other things and you're not going to be able to do all of that. You're not going to be able to do 40 hours of work.
Right. And if you haven't let
scenes.
anybody else in up to that point, then you don't have anybody like ready to go. Whereas if you've been letting people in, then you can say, hey, could you do it in one more year? Or could you do this thing again that you did 3 years ago? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, good luck to this person, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm the wrong person to ask about how to be a nice, patient, organized, decentralized, unifying character.
Well, that's okay. This is one of those situations where we get a don't do what Donnie don't does, or kind of things here. Don't do what Andrew doesn't do thing.
Yeah, I think that, well, and in the last decade or so, I haven't been a pipe major, which has been really nice. But followership is really similar to leadership, right? You're just not in charge. But like a lot of the decision making is all the same. It's all the same. I think maybe I'm particularly good at that, I hope. And that's easier for me, where I can sort of just like, maybe just follow and be the best team player you can be. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm actually better. Maybe I'm actually better suited for that in the pipe band scenario. I don't know.
It's a real thing. I mean, it's silly. It's silly, Andrew, but I kind of pride myself on being a really good dental patient. Like whether it's a routine cleaning or something else, like honestly think that I am pretty good at like holding my mouth open and tilting my head accurately so they can get the best
Yeah.
angle. And you know what? That makes both our lives easier. I'm a contributing member of this little team while that's happening, you know? So,
Yeah, I think I'm a great lobbyist as well. So in the grade 1 situation, like, yeah, like I love, well, as many people are aware, I love writing a new little ditty or arrangement or something, or advocating for a tune or advocating for change, and like, and get in there and agitate. That can be fun too. Though you're not the number one leader guy. You can still lead.
yeah,
I'm not a leader at all,
makes
actually.
sense.
I'm not a leader at all, actually. Like, I'm just a guy that plays in the band, but you could still lead that way. And I think you need that. I think a really good team, everyone's like that. You could be on a basketball team and never play on the court and still be a leader. If you are a pipe major, you're going to need to somehow foster that environment.
Yeah.
And that takes patience, and it takes a willingness to let the quality be less perfect, right? While other people learn how to perform all of the roles in the band in a nice, healthy way. Yeah. And I'm not, I suck at that. I'm not good at that. Yeah, I'm one of these guys. Just give me that. Let me do it.
Right. Yeah.
Here you go. So there you go. I'm on a lot of great teams though. That's very nice. Like Inverare is a great team. The EUSPBA Executive Committee is another great team.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out. I don't know. I feel like operating your family is obviously a team endeavor.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. And so on and so forth. What other teams am I on? Maybe that's it. But yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I feel like that's kind of not a good ending.
No, I think
do?
I can find a good spot for us to draw that one to a close. No problem.
Hey everybody, Andrew Douglas here from the Piper's Dojo, and I just want to say thanks so much for listening to today's iteration of the podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard here today, it would be super helpful to us and to a lot of bagpipers out there trying to find us. If you could give us a top-notch review on whatever platform you're using to listen to this podcast, particularly Apple, iTunes, and Spotify and things like that, your review would be really, really helpful. So if you have a moment today, definitely go over there and help us out. Other than that, until we meet again on the podcast or somewhere else, thanks again for listening.